Hello, all of you aspiring writers and published authors. Welcome to Publishing Power, the show that will help you write more, edit better, and publish professionally. I am Joellen Nordstrom, your Publishing Power pal, first editing founder, and host for this podcast. Now let's talk publishing, editing, and more. Our show notes are included at publishingpower and firstediting.com. Today we have Christelle Lujan of She Writes University. Christelle has been a storyteller for as long as she can remember. From a diary-toting tween to a content marketing pro, she's found a way to make writing her passion and her profession. Yay! Christelle has been in book marketing and indie publishing for over 10 years and is also an author working on bringing her first book to market. As a She Writes University instructor and the managing editor of She Writes, Christelle gets great joy from helping other authors take creative control of their work. Welcome. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm great.
This is awesome. I am very interested because we are reaching out to give our authors a lot more information on what they can do because they come to us editing and that, and we want to find out more about She Writes University. It's part of Spark Point Studio, right? So how does She Writes University fit in?
Yes, so Spark Point Studio is our big umbrella brand, and underneath it we have the first company that was founded, which is Book Sparks, which is a book publicity firm. And that started 10 years ago. We're actually just celebrating our 10-year anniversary there. And that was founded by our CEO, Christelle Lujan. And then from there, her love of books spawned into this big monster of a company that we are now. So we have 3 indie imprints. We have 30,000 member strong community of writers, which is shewrites.com. And then we also have a massive community of readers, which is shereads.com. And then out of all of that, we realize we have a ton of industry knowledge, a ton of industry experience. And so She Writes University was born, which is our educational platform where we take everything we've learned from the last decade of working with authors, working in publishing, working in marketing, and we try and compact it and deliver it to authors in a way that's easy to digest, and whether they're indie or traditional, they can take it into their own writing career and apply it.
Right. There never seems to be a lack of need for more information because the market is just changing so fast. And you know that, you're a fellow author, and you just have to keep following all the time. So I know that you've got some new stuff going on right now. Tell us about the Indie Publishing Bootcamp because it definitely sounds like something that hooks in with first editing.
Yeah, so we created Indie Publishing Bootcamp because as indie publishers, we get to see firsthand people going from aspiring authors to authors and just how bumpy that road can be, even when you have a partner like we would consider our imprints to be, whether you're going traditional, whether you're trying to self-publish. It is just really hard to navigate, okay, I've actually written a manuscript now, what do I do next? And so Indie Publishing Bootcamp is sort of our personal answer to that. You can get so many different recommendations. You have people out there who are exclusively traditional people and believe there's no other way to publish. You have people who are completely on the indie train. And so even though it's called Indie Publishing Bootcamp, we're really looking at the entire cycle of, okay, you've written a manuscript, what do you do next? And so the way we enter into this boot camp is through editing, because regardless of which path you're going, that first draft is far from your last draft. And so despite the publishing path you choose, we start out by talking about editing.
Of course, of course. I mean, that's why we're reaching out, because so many people come to us and, you know, it's been through the years that people think, I've written my book, now I edit it and I'm done. And little do they realize they've just opened the door into this brand new long hallway. And there's all these other doors you get to choose from. And you've got to get to the end, into the light. But where do you get off and what do you do? And
Yes.
Who do you trust? I think it's the largest thing. Who do you trust? And it's much easier to build confidence and trust when you have knowledge, when you know what to ask and what kind of information you are looking for, because I think I say it almost every podcast, you just don't know what you don't know. And you have to find it. So that's really great. There's still a deep programming that traditional is best and indie is secondary or last resort. but it's not. It's freedom. So can you tell us a little bit about how those compare the traditional versus the indie publishing, in your opinion?
So, and we love traditional publishing. We work with a ton of traditional publishers too, but what we see over and over is there's an exhaustion around how difficult it is to get in,
Yeah.
how little you get paid once you're there, and also just sort of your lack of control and the lack of ability to choose your own editor or to have insight on what your cover might look like. Yes, they're the professionals and a lot of times they know best, but one of our partners for Indie Publishing Bootcamp is Christina Stanley from Fictionary, and she talks a lot about, and she's hosting the first webinar, and she talks a lot about her journey and how she had a great editor for the traditional path the first 2 times, and then by the third editor, she had a really bad experience. And so even if you are going traditional, like understanding what you're supposed to do as an editor and understanding how to properly work with an editor and what feels okay and what doesn't feel okay matters no matter which path you're going. You know, as much as we love the indie path, even if you're dead set on the traditional path, it's really important to have this sort of training where you go in with some control and some authority. And most writers do the writing but don't know what to expect from an editor and don't know what they should be looking for in terms of their, you know, their point of view and the story arc. And, you know, there are editors out there who aren't perfect editors. And so, or maybe they just aren't the perfect fit for you. And so knowing, you know, going in with that knowledge gives you the freedom to say, I don't think that's right. Like you have to go in with an open mind and be able to take criticism, but the more education you have, I mean, the better your story is going to be at the end of the day. So it's freedom of control over your work, but it's also freedom of your time. Some people are really fast writers and don't want to publish just 1 book a year. Some people want to publish 3 to 5 books a year, and other people need 7 years between their books and don't, you know, and so it gives you the opportunity to publish in your own way, in your own time, and to really pick your own path. There's plenty of people who will tell you, don't write vampire books anymore. They're totally dead. Well, there's still people who read vampire books. And if you want to write vampire books, you may not find a publisher, but you can certainly indie publish that and find readers. And that's sort of our whole philosophy.
Exactly. There's so much out there, and it's just finding out what it is. I love that you mentioned Fictionary, because they're doing a fantastic work also there with Pro Writing Aid, and we've been in contact with both of them. And for me, you know, for us at First Editing, it really is great to have as many tools, as many self-editing, so much knowledge that you can, because that really doesn't eliminate the editor. It just helps them get you to a higher level, because, you know, they can only take you so far. And if you're lower, then they can get you up higher. But the higher you are, you know, you can still ascend more. It's that coaching and everything that we've been talking about. So using Pro Writing Aid, using Fictionary, using these different tools and plugins, I can't stress them enough. It really is great. So what are the areas that the webinar is focusing
Pro
on?
Writing Aid is actually teaching our second webinar in the series, and so we're really happy to have them on board. And like you said, you know, you can either pay someone to get you up to a certain level that these types of software and this type of training can get you to, or you can get yourself there and pay someone to take you the rest of the way. And I think that's the better value for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, it just, you know, it just, the more you use, the smarter you become. And it really is, it's not, I mean, that's what I love about this is She Writes University. It's all about learning the next stages. It's getting that, you know, MFA in it and really understanding what's out there. And every time you do that, the next book is easier and the process becomes easier, and you catch and you learn so much about yourself. What are your crush words, and where, you know, what are your weaknesses, and then you eliminate them, just like you know, going to the gym. So it's really good. So
yeah.
What are the areas that the webinar is focusing on? I know that we have editing, and so tell us a little bit more about the webinars, because She Writes University, absolutely everyone should be there. I've seen all the different classes and courses and that. I do think that people need to go and check that out, but I'm really interested in this because, of course, I know that there's a major emphasis on editing.
Yeah, so the rest of the course, once we move past the first 2 editing webinars, there's 2 more webinars, and it's about the options for indie publishing. There's still a ton of misinformation around what the options are. Self-publishing, you know, still tends to be associated with low quality, and it's just not anymore. Not if you're doing it right and approaching it right. Our imprints are hybrid imprints. And so the old term for that is a vanity imprint. It's not what we are. You know, what we are is a paid partner and a pre-assembled team. And so just kind of putting the new clarifications on what indie publishing actually looks like and what the options are is our third webinar. And then our fourth covers how to package your book. So whether you are going completely self-published and assembling your own team, or whether you're working in partner with a hybrid publisher, understanding like the value of your synopsis, and then it's not just a 5th grade summary of your book, and understanding how the categories on Amazon work and why just selecting women's fiction can really put you to the bottom of a massive pile, how to obtain blurbs, how to get a review from Publishers Weekly, just things like that, that I think a lot of authors don't usually know unless they're already in the industry, is kind of what we're going to be covering. And basically, how do you package a book yourself and make it look as good as a traditional author so that it's indistinguishable to a reader? Because readers aren't scrolling down to look at that little box that says publisher. They're looking at, what does your Amazon page look like? And is it set up in a way that's familiar to me that makes me assume you've written a good book? And so that fourth webinar is all about packaging your product so that it's indistinguishable from a traditional author's.
Right. And, you know, it's just amazing because I was at the Book Expo in New York, and there are over 1 million self-published authors out this last year. So you really need to have these tools. If you're not there, you just can't compete. And I mean, if you wrote a book because you just want to say you wrote a book, congratulations. But if you wrote the book and you want it to distribute even beyond your family, you know, to locals or your niche or whatever it may be, you really need to get that understood and make sure you've got the right team of experts and advice. And, you know, maybe you can't invest in all of the subjects, but you can definitely learn how to do it yourself. And there are lots and lots of great tools out there. So many. So who is the Indie Publishing Bootcamp for?
So it's really for everybody. I think it can, you know, the name might imply that it's for an aspiring author who is thinking about going indie, but it's really for anybody. We've seen, you know, plenty of authors slide back and forth on this scale, and some people indie publish in a particular genre and traditional publish in another. Some people have been indie publishing for a while and aren't seeing any traction. So it's also for those people who have put out books but are looking to sort of level up the quality and reach readers in a more expansive way than they have so far. And then it is, of course, for aspiring authors who maybe have either gotten rejection letters from the traditional route and are feeling really frustrated that their book may never get out there, or just aspiring authors who are like, I want to own my whole career and I want to know where to go from start to finish. And so we're really trying to make it very compact but very complete so that anyone with a manuscript can follow these steps and feel like they know what they need to do to get to the finish line where they've actually hit publish.
Exactly. There's just so much to do. It's great. So I think we agree that is everyone. Anyone who could possibly watch it.
I think a lot of people might think it isn't for them, but I think anybody can benefit. And even if you're a traditional author wanting to stick with traditional, there is no harm in having more knowledge in all of these areas. So that, for example, if you get a synopsis back that you don't think is going to attract your readers, you know to say something.
Exactly. It's all about negotiations. And I think it's just like when you come to us, we appreciate the more knowledgeable you are, the easier it is for us to do our jobs. Publishers need that, you know, all the agents, because I mean, the more you can build your own audience, your clarification of who you are and what you should be applied to, and, you know, then you really can get farther in your goals and that. So I understand we have a discount available to the people who are listening today if they're interested in the Indie Publishing Bootcamp.
Yes. So go to shewritesuniversity.com. So let me tell you first what all is included. So you get the 4 webinars, but we're also doing 4 Facebook Live events where you can ask any questions about the webinars. And then you're also getting a free ebook from each of us that are hosting. So you get a free ebook from She Writes, you get a free ebook from Fictionary, and you get a free ebook from Pro Writing Aid. And then you also get 4 handouts that complement each webinar. So it's additional resources, maybe some charts to kind of help you visualize the difference in publishing options. So it's really a big package, and it's $197, but for the listeners, we have a $50 off discount. So if you use Indie50, so INDIE 50, you'll save $50 at checkout at shewrites.com, shewritesuniversity.com.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. And of course, if this is not the time, I believe they can come back later, and or, I would always check out She Writes University, because the community is what they really need to hook into right now, from what I understand. We need our tribe. We need our people to surround us and support us, and to feel, we work in a bubble. When you're sitting behind the screen, you're just constantly, is anybody else feel the way I feel? And I think that hooking up, you said there were how many, 30,000 was it in the community?
Yeah, there's 30,000 women in our community. Yeah. And so shewrites.com is definitely very female focused, but in shewritesuniversity.com, we have men and women taking our courses. So, don't let the name fool you. Like, men can just as easily benefit. We're not solely focusing on women's genres or anything like that in the classes. So anyone can benefit from the courses, but definitely on the website, we focus on women and their careers and how they've evolved. We interview and host big name authors. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the She Writes community, is just seeing an author who, kind of blows you away personally, talk about how difficult the journey is for them too. We've had Tiari Jones, who is, a nationally recognized, amazing, incredible author. And she's written on She Writes about having the same sort of insecurities and concern and difficulty getting her work out there. And that's really where the heart of the community comes from, is understanding that, even the biggest authors who seem at the pinnacle of what you're trying to reach, every time they start writing a book, it's hard. Every time they edit a book, it's hard. Every time they publish a book, they're scared, and so, but they do it anyways. And that's what we want, is to encourage everyone to get out there and do the work, even if you're scared.
Awesome. I can't think of a better inspiring words right there. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing this today. Thank you for inviting us into your community and into your little space here in life. We look forward to learning more about She Writes University and the Bootcamp. And I'm going to put the link down below so everyone can check that out. But go to shewritesuniversity.com. And Christelle, thank you so much for coming today and letting us learn just a little bit more of where we can get all that knowledge that we need. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be with you.
Ah, fantastic.